Welcome to The Choice to Grow. I'm Scott Schwenk. Through these dialogues, we'll explore fresh perspectives and discover practical tools for navigating a thriving life that adds value wherever we are. I'll introduce you to innovators and creators from across our world who embody what it means to cultivate growing as a way of life. Let's prepare together. Take a deep breath in. Hold the breath briefly as you soften your shoulders and soften the soles of your feet and palms of your hands. Then exhale like you're releasing tension and setting down a heavy burden from every cell. Now let's dive in. Welcome back, everybody. I'm thrilled to be with you. I'm loving this adventure we're taking together. If you're here for the first time, welcome. Pull up a chair, pull out some tea, some lovely water, relax your body. If you've been here many times, remember to refresh your listening. Remember to come to it with beginner's mind. What can you hear newly? What can you hear in new ways? My guest today, I've known about for many, many years through good friends and teachers of mine. Saniel Bonder and his wife and partner in work and business and life, Linda Groves-Bonder, have developed a relational, integrative, and readily accessible breakthrough approach to spiritual enlightenment and embodying wholeness. And it's best known and has been known as waking down in mutuality. We hear about waking up, so we're going to hear a bit more if that's new for you today. What is waking down? And they've been doing this for over 3 decades as pioneering coaches of this embodied process. That's key, that our processes are embodied. It's not just something we experience on the cushion, but it shows up when we're on the phone with customer service for too long of a hold. It shows up when the bank balance is concerning. So they've taken enlightenment from remote temples and Olympic athletes of spiritual practice and evolved it into a humane, ethical process and realization, conveyed it into the towns, households, and workplaces of everyday people globally. And this is important because it is an equal opportunity. We have to be ready for realizations, but it's available to all. Born in 1950, Saniel was a Harvard honorary national scholar, earning a BA in social relations. And after completing his spiritual quest, he has spent 30 plus years democratizing awakened living with Linda and others. He's authored many spiritual books, including Waking Down and Healing the Spirit Matter Split, and 2 novels. Linda, full of light, graduated from Ball State University with a BS in art education. A singer-songwriter, photo stylist, and artist, she toured with an international band and has released 2 solo albums, I'm Here and Joy of Being. Since '96, she's focused with Saniel on teaching intensive transformation through their total suite of offerings, now known as the Human Sun Heart Work. And one of the cornerstone things that they're offering, and we'll get to touch on this later in the conversation, is this live course it's online, it's recorded, it's self-paced, and then it's got some interactive parts to it, which is called Maximizing Joy in Your Work, Life, Relationships, and World. I said that a little out of order. Maximizing Joy in Your Life, Work, Relationships, and World. It's an 8-session course featuring guest interviews with Ken Wilber, Rick Hansen, PhD, Mirabai Starr, and so many others. So we'll talk about that again later in the show. Without further ado, I'm so happy to be together in dialogue with you. Welcome, Saniel and Linda.
Thank you so much, Scott.
Yeah,
it's
really
wonderful to be with you today. Thank you.
Very much appreciate your very warm-hearted and deeply informed introduction. We can feel how much these things mean to you in your own journey as well.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, they do. One of the things I appreciate most, even just in generating your bio freshly and being with your background, is this shared approach to caring about more than just one element of what we can call inner work, and caring deeply about it, that it holds up not just when the eyes are closed. So when you two hear the title of this show, The Choice to Grow, in this moment, what does it evoke for either of you in this moment? Personally or collectively, however you touch that.
I love the title, The Choice to Grow, because it seems to me that each individual, and myself included, moves through every day with the opportunity to notice when things come into your awareness, that it's actually shifting something about yourself, about how you perceive things, about how you feel things. And if each individual can even look at the most subtle, seemingly insignificant little things that happen during the day or interactions with others. We talk a lot about mutuality in our work. These kinds of things that are in our lives every moment of every day are actually places where we can learn and grow and evolve and deepen in our hearts and in our connections to others and the world in general. So one thing that I know about myself is that when I engage with somebody, even if it's a checker at the store or, a close friend or a family member, curiosity is one of the keys to that interaction, and being able to really listen deeply and ask questions of the other is a form of learning and growing and evolving, because that can feed your heart. And actually, in that connection with another, it feeds their heart too, and it makes them feel like they're recognized and seen. That's one of the things that's so important for me. And in turn, that person feeds me. I feel like they're being fed, but I get fed. And it opens up my heart more and more to connection and to the world. And I feel like that kind of energy virals out, right? It's a positive, joyful connection and mutuality.
I mentioned before we began the recording my state of enamorment with the work of A.H. Alma's Hamid Ali and this diamond approach. And one of the things that I've been reflecting on that he points out is his view, his experiential view, that all of us are actually organs through which wholeness or total being is perceiving. So as I listen to what you just said, the mutuality, it seems it can be helped by those who are ready to recognize, well, we're all just fingers on one hand. So there's something already shared that doesn't need to be built, but needs to be recognized and experienced.
Very well said.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that recognition is that place of placing attention on the things that you're hearing and feeling, and then recognizing the shifts perhaps in that connection. So thank you, Scott. That was good. Did you want to say something about that too?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a great question. What does the choice to grow mean to you? And, as I contemplate my life, that phrase, waking down, has had progressively different refinements and clarifications and openings into, what couldn't have been expected, as well as plenty of moments just working through the routines of living. But it's a beautiful phrase, and it's, in some ways, it's also, you could say, the choice to grow is, I'm not sure choice is the right word, but I'll use it. It's a choice to not know. It's a choice to open to what previously has not manifested in our lives, whether it's some skill or capacity we're trying to become more capable of, or some kind of next turn in the road, play a fork in the road, and you got to actually make the choice. Can't go down both forks at the same time. So it's very much a being on the cutting edge of speaking personally, who I've been, how I've shown up in my presence and participation, and being open to whatever is being revealed next, which, as Linda pointed out, can come from all kinds of sources. including the checker at the grocery store, even if they're in a bad mood when you happen to go through. So, it's so much about daring to open up to whatever's next and clarifying what that might be and committing to the work it takes, whatever that work is.
Daring to open up to what's next. That's a whole world right there.
It sure is.
Yes.
In terms of capacities, and then actually actively taking steps that are aligned with opening to what's next without trying to preform it or be attached to a particular outcome. One of the areas that I've been definitely, and I'm far from the only one contemplating all of this in my own life, is not my own life, but as a person living in a world that is just in 8 months rapidly transforming in terms of social structures, the social safety net, not just in the United States where you and I live, but also in many other countries. And it's an interesting doesn't even touch it. It's a compelling contemplation alongside the experience that there are multiple timelines happening all at once, multiple dimensional realities all happening at once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yet my physical body seems to be only in one, I don't know if that's true, but only in one realm where these things seem to be happening in the world. So the contemplation about where is best served by putting my attention in a moment-to-moment basis that's not an avoidance of anything, but also not a reification of things that are either unnecessary, irrelevant to my development and service in the world, and so on. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, if I'm hearing you, what you're framing here as a question, to me, you were earlier referencing the inherent integrativeness of how so many people are registering what's happening now. I loved your summary, by the way, of what A.H. Almas, Hamid, was conveying, and that's very strongly the case for us, that we're having to participate in all of these realities, that we're having to consciously participate in all these realities that we're engaged with in any case. So the more consciousness, discernment we can bring, the better in general, the better off we all are. And so much of it is a recognition that you said earlier, it's not merely about sitting on the mat, but living a whole life. And so much of it then becomes a recognition that what you do out in the outer life, including, for instance, whatever steps any of us might take to address the greater political, geopolitical, financial, all the realities that are cascading through, in many cases, quite shocking changes. Yes. What we do there is no less real, sacred, and important than the sitting on the mat or whatever our version of the quote-unquote inner work.
No more and no less real or important. That's really worth underlining and triple clicking. No more and no less real.
Yeah.
I recently, with a colleague that I think we share in common, Dustin DePerna, did his intro to Mahamudra retreat, the lineage he inherited from Daniel P. Brown. It was my first time meditating intentionally for that many hours with eyes open and receiving nonstop pointing out instructions during what is called the meditation. I came from a world of meditation where you get 5 to 15 minutes of guidance and instruction, maybe a visualization, and then you're left in silence with your eyes closed and whatever happens, happens. Mm-hmm. And in that experience, it was so clear to me the opportunity for deeper integration, mm-hmm. with these many subtle awarenesses that come online for anybody who's doing significant practice, mm-hmm. attending to them, not giving them less attention, but also giving skillful attention to, is my shoe tied? Was I kind as I left the checkout station at the grocery store? Did I leave anything unattended to in that coaching session with that client?
Yeah. So those questions become equally real, sacred, and important as what is the nature of my consciousness? Who am I? Or any other inquiry question we might take into a meditative exploration.
Yeah,
and
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But just to complete that, one of in the evolution of our work over these 3+ decades, early on, it came to be called waking down, which is a phrase I had come up with. It's in my first book, The White Hot Yoga of the Heart.
I remember when it came out.
Oh, yeah? Great, thank you. And after a while, at one point, and we were emerging as a collective, people who had been initially my students or students of Linda and me, and she had been initially a student of mine, which we navigated pretty well given the challenges of both teacher, student, and lover, beloved.
Yeah. And in your work, just to actually ask an important question about that, I'm imagining, or my hallucination is, there's a strong transmission, and I think it's valuable for us to say, or one of you to say, what you say transmission is. When there's a strong transmission of energy, there can be a power dynamic, and then you bring in, well, we want to explore romance with one another. How do we do that in the face of there's this power dynamic or differential that has been enacted for a good reason, but now it doesn't serve us if we're going to actually be eye to eye in this way?
Yeah. Well, that's a whole story. And but from the beginning, because I had seen how these kinds of things had been handled and mismanaged, often in ways that have been personally catastrophic to people, yes. Traumatizing. So we knew, we were both, mature adults at that time, back in the 90s, and when it became clear that we were moving toward an intimate relationship, one of the things I did was I said, listen, if this goes south, if this doesn't work, it could be devastating for your process, Linda's transformational work. And I said, so the only way I can imagine having this be workable for you, should it not work out, is for you to take the initiative. Mm-hmm. On everything about us coming together. And that was how we managed it. And I forget how I got into this earlier, but oh well, here we are.
Well, we're relating through the lens of waking down and how that structure, subtle structure, came into existence. It named itself in a book, but it's really a subtle structure that you've been using to hold life.
Yes.
And the transmission and the differential in where I was compared to perhaps where Saniel was as the teacher at the time, and I was the student. So there was definitely a differential, and there was absolutely transmission coming from and within and to everyone in the room, from Saniel as a teacher, but everyone. I always like to stress that everyone is transmitting. Everyone is transmitting their hearts, where they are in their own life process. And so when I connected with Saniel, it generated something in me that helped me grow exponentially. And I had my realization through Waking Down in Mutuality, and have been co-teaching with Saniel for over 30 years now. So it's the transmission is really important to speak about, because individuals who encounter each other and they feel something, and it generates a shift in awareness or a deepening in perhaps their heart, a heart awakening perhaps.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. That virals out again to the world.
So you're going to say something?
Yeah, I'm just reflecting. I'm noticing two things simultaneously. one, the people that I respect as teachers, whether it's Sally Kempton, who I had closely and lots of dialogues with over the years and shared as we became friends, so much of her personal experience with me, which was invaluable. Her experience going through ashram life as a monk, as a swami, and what that was like as a senior teaching swami, the expectations, the engagements with the guru, and how that went, and what had to be metabolized often from those interactions. I'm thinking A.H. Almas. I'm thinking about my own life, and that there's not been one awakening or one realization. Some have seemed stronger than others. Some turned out to be peak experiences that just stuck around for a while and informed a different way of viewing something, but weren't a fundamental tectonic shift. And so now I'm really oriented in this recognition that there's no end to the realizations. And I'm stoked about that, actually.
Yes.
That's right. It just keeps on going.
Ongoing.
Where I was going with that whole discussion of waking down, so the work was known as Waking Down from fairly early on, and is generally best known out there by that designation. But after we had gone on for a while, and Linda and others had gone through fundamental shifts in their basic presence and participation of this embodied kind that we're helplessly into, it dawned on me at one point. I remember announcing, as we had a kind of emerging teachers circle in the work, and I said, folks, of course we can continue to refer to the work as Waking Down. That's natural and fine. But its more complete name or title, or if you will, mantric designation, is Waking Down in Mutuality. And the mutuality, the realness and importance of the other, no less than of the self, is as fundamental a dimension of the process as the waking aspect, and also the down, which is both energetic embodiment and also shadow integration and recognition and integration.
Some of the key teachers on the planet that we know about, that many people tend to hear about first, happened to offer those who were ready a psychoactive question that we could call inquiry. Ramana Maharshi, when people were ready, he didn't give it to everybody, who am I? Adyashanti, who's been a teacher of mine, shifted it to what am I? He felt that the who was stimulating unskillful cognition.
Mm-hmm.
One of your teachers, Adida, who's been through many names, to my recollection, would give the question, avoiding relationship, ? And I'm wondering how, the impact of that question in your life into the formation of In Mutuality.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Very good question.
Very good question. And curiously enough, his use of that inquiry question and his imparting it to his students, devotees, didn't really have a primary impact on me in this arena of mutuality. The one who really hit me the hardest on that was Martin Buber. I Am Now.
Yes.
Yeah, I Am Now.
That was in the early emergence of my spiritual quest, my religious and spiritual quest, when I was my later teens and early 20s. And Buber's fierce insistence on acknowledging and relating to the reality of the other in all its his, her, their forms it kept me on a path all through my years with Adida, as well as what preceded that, having come first to Ramana Maharshi. That principle of mutuality, among other things, isn't merely from the specifically spiritual, esoterically spiritual dimension of my training, but rather someone who came into his fullness, Buber did, when psychology was bursting into the world and tending to get people looking at self, 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 and his orientation toward the other.
And then when they come together, the best of psychology and the best of the what we're calling spirituality, there's this greater opportunity to really have something that not only sticks, but actually informs how we experience any moment and what we're bringing to other people in that mutuality.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes. And I think that that phrase, avoiding relationship from Arida, is actually a bit different from the form of mutuality that we have taught and coach and encourage individuals to live as and in. Because I was never in the guru tradition. I was not a follower of Da, but I'm very familiar with a lot of what Saniel had experienced while he was there. And from what I understand, there was very little mutuality as far as the guru and the devotees. And so we're very, very much different from that. And so go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think one way to maybe flesh that out a bit is that when I left that work, there's a whole story around that, not necessary to go into at this moment, but fairly quickly the basic embodiment realization, the non-difference of consciousness and matter, spirit and matter, emerged as if it had been waiting to get shoehorned out of me, or into me. And I very quickly realized, the way it works, even if our unity, our oneness, our sameness in and as the divine is verbally given a lot of podium time, the way these things tend to get lived is a basic existential inequality between the teacher, student, guru, adept, and the aspirant, apprentice, etc. And so on the altar of mutuality, or the foundation of that altar, is for us a vivid, living recognition of a radical existential equality between and among each and every one of us and all of us together, that then has to be managed intelligently along with the hierarchical differentials in our capacities, our understandings, and even between the generations of those who, help those coming up and having been helped by those who came before. So I hope that kind of fleshes it out.
It does. I mean, we could literally do 100-part podcast together and not cover all the powerful, empowering, clarifying nuances that really come to bear in a practitioner's moment-to-moment life.
Yes,
that's right.
There's just so much here, and it's really clear to me that there's no one way to see reality. I feel like that's still at the edges in terms of collective realization of that on this planet at this time. I think that's really probably a leading edge, or a leading edge of a leading edge. We're still informed so much, at least the geopolitics, by there's a one and only way to see things through the Abrahamic lens, Judeo-Christian Islamic kind of view.
Yeah.
And so I really value, whether it was intentional or not, how psychology has come in and really opened out something, sometimes by great distress, to open it out, that makes us have to deal with more than we are familiar with. If you're going to be alive and not live in a cave, I'm going to encounter other people, and then I'm going to get to see things about my view and how limiting or inclusive it is. And if it actually works.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and that's where we started in this conversation is talking about that kind of engagement, where generated aha moments of, oh, that is my view, but I feel like something is shifting in my view, in my stance, or in my belief system, because belief systems can run very, very deeply rooted in our whole being, not just in our minds, but down to the cellular memory of what has worked for us, what might be working for us now, and it's constantly changing and shifting. That's what's so juicy and wonderful about the work that we do with people, our coaching and teaching work, individually and in groups. We really encourage each individual to look at all the subtleties, even the things that we tend to negate and push aside and distract and dissociate from, and feel, not just think about them, but just feel how it drops into the body and into the heart, and how it's generating an energy, or perhaps a realization in the moment that something has changed, and that a particular belief system or practice or discipline may not actually, to use a phrase I like to use, sing to your heart anymore.
Let's unpack that a little bit more, singing to your heart. Because I've had interactions with students or people who were kind of co-students with me in a particular teaching scene who used that phrase without realizing it to avoid dealing with something. Oh, that's not singing to my heart. Well, no, sweetheart, that's actually touching something that your heart hasn't yet recognized, or you haven't yet recognized. And I love that you're not interested in that taste, but actually it's pretty clear that we need to lean into whatever that is, even though it doesn't seem to make you sing and dance. How do you unpack that in some sort of a, I don't know, kind ferocity or ferocious kindness?
Yeah, well, the fact that the person would say, well, that doesn't sing to my heart. The way you handled that and spoke that was brilliant, Scott. Because perhaps, not always, but perhaps there is a deeply rooted underlying defense or protection that if something is triggering them to say, oh, that doesn't sing to my heart, they may not be opening up to noticing all of the other elements around that particular thing. And so that's where coaching, and that's where skilled individuals such as yourself and hopefully us in our work with people, just loving them and guiding them into their unique discoveries of what is truly singing to your heart. Because whatever that might be, that's going to generate motion and maybe a new expression of a discipline or a practice. And everyone, what we've discovered for decades now is that everyone is so beautifully unique to themselves. There are similarities, obviously. There's similarities in the way that we work together, and there are also differences. And that's the juice of life, right? And so
that uniqueness, if I may interject, is another piece that I'm actively exploring in myself and in people that work with me, which is like, I'm quite clear and have been for some time, and now I'm getting more direct experience of it, that there's something individuated that's not the programmed or socially constructed ego structure. There's something individuated.
Thank you.
And there are layers between that and what we could call the thing we all share in common with all of existence, absolute total being or whatever. To notice, for one to be able to onboard the skill set or wake up the capacities for recognizing, is this thing that's arising, this characteristic, this quality, this experience that's arising with me coming from some sort of tension pattern of social conditioning, construction through my childhood, or we haven't even touched on the things that we get conditioned by before we even have language. So we don't have an actual way to describe them. Is it coming from that, or is this the actual individuated essence of what I am? And how do I tell the difference? What's the feeling tone? Because I can't cognize it. What's the feeling tone difference?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
The feeling. Thank you for using that word. Feeling.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, one of the primary ways that we speak of that greater all-inclusive, or any word you put on it, there's another one that doesn't sound the same. That nature is the heart, capital H. And this is part of my inheritance through my lineage of Ramana Maharshi and Adida, and became very, very central to my whole journey, and then to the work all through these years. And part of the way we see it sounds very resonant to me with some of what you're getting at there. And that is that, as we like to say, and it's something that I repeat almost word for word fairly frequently, the one great heart, capital H, that we all share, equally and totally, not merely as a spark of somehow or a subset of, is coming alive and awake in and as and through everybody and all of us together, really all nature, all that exists. And if you take that seriously, it actually transforms the modalities of practice, or can, I should say, in the sense that a lot of what we help people move beyond is a view of themselves as a self-contained bag of limits.
Separate from other self-contained bags of limits.
And the world that's all individuated little chunks.
Bags.
little baggy chunks. Instead of that view, it's a recognition that that greater nature is crystallizing in, as, and through each one's uniqueness. So in our work over the years, there's a lot of detail of waking down to mutuality, and we have whole pictures and precepts, all structured ways of looking at it. But in the actual work with individuals and groups, so much of it is helping people to begin to, as Carl Jung suggested, recognize that actually the event happening here in human evolution is not man seeking to become God, but the other direction. That greater nature is, again, I like to use that word, crystallizing. It is embodying as us. It is coming alive and awake as us. And for that reason, among other things, one of my early mentors, after I left Adida's work, said something to me once that hit me like a gong. Spirituality is not just evolutionary, it is itself evolving. And
that's so important, that spirituality itself, the practices, the processes, the realizations are continuing to evolve. They're not a fixed, rigid object.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so there's great venerable beauty and effectuatingness in honoring the words of someone who, best we can tell, said exactly something like this X thousand years ago, or last year, or whenever. And on another level, the danger of, I always stumble on that word, reifying. What does it means?
It's like confirmation bias is one of the ways I use in a simile or a metaphor. Well, it's not a simile. It's like, a simile. It's like confirmation bias. Anything can be reified. And in fact, that seems to be, and that's one of the main things Almas uses as a teaching device, is to talk about recognizing and releasing all of our reifications. So to reify, in my understanding, is to act, believe, think in ways that continue to feed a certain view and experience as though it's true and real, and to the exclusion of other views, like how many people across the planet, and I have been one of them, have a reified view or have had a reified view. There's something wrong or missing about me fundamentally.
Yeah.
Right. And it gets reified. And we have confirmation bias that it's true, we think, because we go to the gym and we smile at 4 different people who all don't smile or look away. Well, maybe they had to poop, or maybe they were in a podcast that they were listening to and they're super focused. But my meaning making will reify the belief system, whatever it is.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So in that sense, the word is somewhat applicable. And part of what we're helping people do is begin to recognize, going back to what you said at the beginning, that we're all like fingers of this great hand, and we are the hand. And so the both end of taking responsibility consciously for all of those dimensions of our nature and identity and unity and difference with others. That's the journey, and it is continually evolving. Thank you. I'm really glad that spoke to you.
Yeah, you mentioned the phrase "something missing," where a lot of individuals are walking around. They may have everything together in their life, as far as a job and great friendships and a wonderful family and on and on and on. But deep down inside, they're feeling like still there's something fundamentally missing. We talk about that as the core wound or the heart wound of existence. It's more of an existential something missing instead of an outward thing like a watch or a car or money or whatever that might be.
Or being good enough as a human to be worthy of love. I think this is really worthy of leaning in and unpacking more. How I would label it temporarily, and I'm pulling on Almas's language, I'm just so listening and reading that it's just there, is the enlightenment drive. This drive, in my earlier years when I was a kid, and I mean a kid seeking, like under 10, wondering about things, it was like the calling. The church called it called to God. Oh, well, that must be it. I'm called to God. That's that. And it kept evolving the understanding of it. Then simultaneously, there's been areas of my character, my personality, my experience of being a human connected to other people where I just felt I don't fit in. I don't know how to fit in. I keep getting picked last in sports. I don't know how to do a pull-up. I'm not drawing as well as the other people in my drawing class. Like all those sorts of something's issues. Wrong, something's missing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We would call all of those as core issues.
Brilliant.
Which is an actual thing that is causing you to think about it and to feel a certain way or to express something in a certain way. The existential wound, if you will, is issues can be wrapped around that. But if you go deeper and you investigate it and you feel deeper into that wound, we call it the existential wound because it is the foundation of our totality that is missing. That realization of who we are as a total being here, as an awakened individual who has the drive to serve or to help or to make change in the world. And as I say that, I can feel emotion rise up because this is our passion, to help individuals realize themselves and to bring their gifts and their service to the world. I'm sorry, it's just...
Don't be sorry, please. It's transmission. It's beautiful, and it feels like a compassion that doesn't belong just to your personal history, that comes through in moments.
Yes.
one of my books that we both have a special feeling for is called Great Relief. And a friend and literary agent who also knew Ken back in the day, a man named John White, actually wound up suggesting what became the subtitle, which is 9 Sacred Secrets Your Body Wants You to Know. And so the reason it's coming to mind is because the first secret, sacred secret number 1, is most everybody feels like something is wrong, missing, or unclear at the core of life most of the time. And our orientation to that is that's not a mistake to be overcome. That's actually the evolutionary driver.
Yes.
That makes humans the crazy beehive we are on this planet.
Yeah.
Do, find, get, see. You know,
it's the grain of sand without which there would no production of a pearl.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this is one of the ways we feel that spirituality, this whole kind of adventure, is evolving to make room. Like in the 9th secret goes something like, let me see if I can get it. You can't heal the core wound, but you can become conscious of it, in it, and as it. And so that as then is living in this kind of embodied clarity, if you will, existential joy, a zillion names you can come up with for it. And also noticing that there's an ongoing, the word wound has its not so helpful meanings, tension, whatever you want to call it. There's some kind of at the core of existence, because we are simultaneously absolutely unconditional and indescribably, unimaginably that.
And I want to challenge this angst for a moment. Not like in many realities, I won't recognize it as angst, as whatever. But in this moment, when we're talking about the ways that the cognitive mind, the thinking mind, based on my past, paints meaning over things that are just are, I recognize that if I slow down and I put myself on the court, being the one experiencing what you're describing, in the so-called angst, if I drop the labels, what's happening? There's a sensation of energy doing something. That's it. If I can begin to perceive it that way without suppressing anything and get interested in mutuality with the energy I'm sensing without pushing or pulling back, and just be right there at the edge with it, like pressing hands but not pushing or pulling with another human.
Yes.
I find that it's actually this beautiful psychoactive something that I would have missed when I was going to the familiar label of angst, because it didn't feel like ease or joy in the way that I knew ease or joy.
Exactly. So that's the great relief that we're talking about. That right there.
And so what we see with people, and by the way, when people are really working and living this, they don't use big words like existential blah, 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 or all the language we inherited from venerable tradition. They say stuff like, I'm still feeling kind of like shit all the time in some weird way.
Yeah.
But, and I don't know what to make of it, there's this okayness.
Even in the midst.
And simultaneous.
Yes.
And that, two of our favorite words are both and with a slash between them.
Yes. And simultaneity. We talk a lot about that. And individuals who've had what we call second birth awakening, conscious embodiment together as the onlyness of being, they talk about how the paradox of that simultaneity, the both and existing together, is just real for them. It is their truth. They're singing to their heart.
I feel like I'm still getting accustomed to that. Like suddenly being put into, this is not the best analogy because what I'm experiencing is much more subtle and nuanced, but like being put into a rental car of a style that I've never driven on the opposite side of the road than I'm used to, in a country I've never been to, with signs I can't read in my own language, kind of thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
That's a good
like
one.
that.
That's
Like that.
That's a good
one. But the simultaneity is like, Dan Brown in his amazing research at Harvard as a lineage carrier of Tibetan Buddhism did so much research and proved that awareness moves many times faster than thought. It's one thing to know that cognitively, to have read about it, to be able to conjecture. It's a whole other thing to be walking down the street, perceiving or experiencing from this wideness that has no horse in the race, but is moving, at the same time as having aspects of persona that are like, screw that, fuck that person, that's just awful, or whatever that might be, happening at the same time. And then how do I hold all of that? How do I hold when I've had, and many of you listeners have had, a provisional recognition that there's something that you and I are that doesn't go away, doesn't come and go, is the source of wholeness, but it maybe isn't informing all of our moments yet. And at the same time, we may have a lover or a friend or a colleague who we're frustrated with. And somehow we're experiencing both those things at the same time. And there's not yet a lot of folks out there embodied as teachers and coaches who know how to point us in the direction of working with that.
Yes, yes.
And that's part of how spirituality, quote unquote, this kind of adventure or enterprise is itself evolving. Yeah. We are having to, when I began doing my work and speaking about it, I had to come up with many new ways of saying things because I just didn't find anything that captured it somehow or expressed it properly somehow. And what's beautiful and also I think very challenging about this next era that's opening up is that greater capacity for the both and synchrony of living and participation really is, quote unquote, democratizing itself. It's like a rhizome. Our friend Jeremy Johnson, you may be aware.
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Love Jeremy.
That
I can't say that it's easy to read his writing. I try and I'm drawn to it, but it's like I have to read each sentence about 20 times. Right. He's so smart.
And he's supposedly the popularizer of Gebser. Who's a
right. I haven't even tried Gebser.
Oh yeah. So anyway, there is this emerging event, and I got that word rhizome from Jeremy. Yeah. It's like mushrooms sprouting on a forest floor, but they're not all the same.
What's important to note about a rhizome before we move past this very powerful word, for you listeners, a rhizome is something that reproduces through its roots. And so, by example, I had a roof bed garden on top of my apartment before the landlord outlawed it, and I didn't know better. And one of the vegetable, whatever I put in there was mint. I thought, I'll grow some mint. Well, nobody had told me, and I didn't know, that you don't do that unless it's the only thing in the pot. And you definitely don't put mint straight into the ground because it's a rhizome. It can spread through its roots. The tiniest bit of root it can reproduce, and it will spread in all directions, choking out all the water and nutrients. When I literally rolled up the soil, it was a carpet of roots from just the mint. Literally thick carpet of roots. So that's some of, I think, maybe what Jeremy's indicating in using the word rhizome is how things can spread, how things do spread, whether it's beneficial or deleterious.
Yes. Yeah. And the bad part of the spreading can choke out part of the good, expressions. And ideas that are out there perhaps sometimes.
Let's put this on the map with maximizing joy to some degree, so that we're actually teasing this out in something that maybe is more relatable than just my theories. So joy, and this year in my membership community is about living from magnetic joy. And one of the things that was launched in January, right? And then we have a whole lot of changes in the country's leadership and in what's happening in the United States. So suddenly people are like, magnetic joy? What are you, crazy? Like, this doesn't feel very joyful. So how we hold what we've been discussing so far through the lens of joy, I, at some point in life, thought, oh, well, I'm practicing joy, or I did all these workshops to experience more joy, to grow my capacities for living from joy, and I don't feel joyful right now, so something's wrong with either them, me, or life.
Thank you. Thank you.
Whoa, yes. We do have the ups and downs of living in and as joy, definitely. And we talk about the two kinds of joy that is experiential, that in a moment when we're engaging with someone and we're laughing, or we're watching a funny movie, or things that happen in life that are joyful, that really make us happy. That's experiential. But then there's the existential joy that is the underlying, once again, foundation of our hearts, that just exist as love, as pure joy, as happiness. And it may not necessarily show up in life or in your experience as that. But if you were to step back, if you're feeling funky, and something's happening, step back, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and access that heart and access that energy of the existential joy that is always there and that everyone is on some level radiating.
Linda, would you go a little further and just guide us through a brief experience of touching it?
Yes.
And brief, don't let that hem you in any way, that word brief.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to do that. I have lots of guided meditations that I do, but most of the time when I'm working with someone, it can be very spontaneous. So today it'll be a spontaneous guidance, an experiential thing that we can all kind of participate in, or not.
Now, if you're driving, please pull over for this, or save this exercise for another moment.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Or you can, even as you're driving, just take those deep breaths and focus on the joy and the beauty of your surroundings as you're driving. So, yeah, so let's just sit and close our eyes just for a moment and take 3 deep breaths all the way down into the belly. All right, so now just centering yourself and allowing yourself to feel the body and feel any kind of tension or anxiety perhaps that's in the body, and just shake it out a little bit. Put attention and focus your heart on that spot, and just release and breathe into it and embrace it. There's nothing wrong. You're not doing anything wrong if you have that kind of anxiety or tension in the body. It's just there. And now it's diminishing as you breathe into that spot, or it could be more than one spot. So I was speaking to the existential joy that we all are and living as, but it's really difficult sometimes to access that existential heart of joy or love or consciousness or being. So bring the joy, the concept or the idea of joy, directly into your awareness and drop it right down into the center of your heart. And as you're feeling the heart and contemplating the heart as joy, envision it as a glowing, beautiful nectar love balm of bright golden light. And that golden light is the sun that is rising in your heart. And that sun is pure joy. And when I speak about joy, I also speak about the beautiful feeling sense of love that we all are as well. So feel that sun in your heart rising and blazing and radiating out in all directions through your whole body, through all of the rooms that you're in, all just blazing out to all creation. And as it's blazing out, it has that feeling sense and element of joy that is touching all creation, all beings, the entire planet, the entire universe, on and on and on. Now bring your attention to your own personal heart. And if you feel so moved, put your hands on your heart. And know that that is pure love. That sun that is rising in your heart as you exists as joy. And you can access that at any given moment. Just even as you're doing a daily task, you can take a breath, place your attention on your heart as joy, and remember that it radiates out to all creation, all beings, everywhere. One more breath, and then we're done.
That's a great micro practice to do more than one time a day.
Yes.
As a check-in.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, listeners, there's nuances. You know, I want you to feel heard and seen and felt if you have been experiencing some difficult emotion today and it didn't feel like you touched joy. I just want to we want to acknowledge that your intention to practice is one of the ways joy was actually reaching through your difficulty, and that there's no right experience to have. A seed has been planted. A seed has been planted. And maybe the second time or third time you listen to this recording, you can trust that it's going to go deeper when you're not worried about being a particular way or getting to some sort of state.
That's right. Thank you for that, Scott.
Yeah.
So much of the time, if someone does a meditation or a practice and they aren't quite, quote unquote, getting it, they feel like they're failing, and absolutely not.
And I found that people actually have that as a pattern.
Yes.
Of getting excited and finding a great teacher who has a strong transmission and a really great logos of what they're teaching, and they'll go in and repeat the same thing and not see how I'm getting in my own way to keep repeating the experience of I don't get it.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that can open the door to us touching on the power and the importance of the skill called inquiry. Things that keep repeating themselves in my life become a doorway rather than something to stress about.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'd like to go back to Linda used that phrase, the sun in your heart is rising. And this is really, it's kind of our supersonic elevator pitch, or statement or proclamation.
Mantra.
The sun in your heart is rising. Because it's not merely metaphorical. And the way my process unfolded and then our work has shown up over the years is through a recognition that quite literally in our heart of hearts, and even anatomically. Part of the great meeting of science and spirit in the 20th century was that at the beginning of that century, some English anatomists discovered where the source of the heartbeat is in the mammalian heart, not only human, but all mammals. And it's a place that's called the sinoatrial node, and it's a specific aspect of the tissue that doesn't have an outstanding physical thing that can be seen, but that's where the action is, in the right atrium, the upper right chamber of the heart. The heartbeat is initiated from that place. And this is the same place in the heart that first Ramana Maharshi and then Adida acknowledged, hey folks, this is where the real action is. This is senior even to the great light of divinity above.
This is on the left side, the left heart, not the right.
The right side.
The right side. So not where the physical heart is. Got it.
Yeah. So there's the physical mass on the left, the heart of spirituality, the Anahata chakra, known by such names, in the center. And there is this, in some ways, hidden place that is now, from our perspective, blazing itself into self-aware awakeness in and as and through all of these bodies. And that's a long evolutionary journey, but it's stepping up its speed now.
Yeah.
And so that's the place, if you will. And we're not saying that everybody has to have an experience, a feeling of it, a vision or anything like that. But from that place, that is also the source of our every living moment, our consciousness, our life. That's where the existential joy is rooted. And it is simply accessible there, no matter what we're going through. And when we say accessible, I love the way you were putting it and Linda was describing it. Accessible doesn't mean that therefore we're having a gloriously loving experience.
Yeah.
In fact, it can be very much a still small voice, presence, intuition. But the more confident we become in and as and of that, the more that existential joy then can coincide with the experiential joys that come and go, that, unlike the existential joy, are caused by psychological or physical events. And so, our course we have called Maximizing Joy, which includes interviews with people like Ken Wilber and Rick Hansen. You mentioned Terry Patton, our late friend. In that course, we make the point there are these two kinds of joy, and it's totally okay for you to maximize both of them.
Yeah, and in that course, in all of the interviews that we've done, each individual brilliantly bring in their own expression and practices that individuals can actually use endlessly from the recordings.
Yeah.
And it's just so rich to hear and feel them in their own unique ways bring their gifts to the group that we actually had in the course itself. We do a presentation, then we did the interviews, then we also had a group of individuals that we had conversations with around the interviews and the presentations. And so it's so full and rich and packed full of things that you can actually do or not do to access joy, access more happiness, groundedness, being.
And just to add one other piece to this that I think weaves in a lot of what we've been touching on today. One of those great experiential joys, curiously enough, is doing the work of leaning into the stuff that you'd really rather not look at.
That's right.
Yes.
That is so right. That is so right.
There's a strength, a ferocity that grows as we dare, use that word daring back at the beginning, we dare to look into, to feel into, to lean into what may otherwise, as you were saying, not sing to our hearts at all, apparently. But there's this deeper drive.
And right time, place, and circumstance, I see, is really, really important. Right time, place, and circumstance for any particular trajectory in the practices and the teachings, that things are not one size fits all. And this is why it is so important to, at the right moment, have somebody further down the road in particular areas to interact with directly and get feedback.
Thank you so much for saying it the way that you just did, Scott, because that speaks to a skill from a coach or a teacher with their student or aspirant or whatever title you want to put on to this individual, to really deeply, deeply pay attention, listen, ask questions, feel. As you're hopefully in person with a person or even on Zoom, you can actually watch their body language, their facial expressions, ask questions, pull them out, and help them find their unique pacing and rhythm, because not everyone is the same. And if you push and push and push an individual who's not ready to engage in a very deeply traumatic experience that might be still informing them, that could be re-traumatizing them. So you need to be skillful in that feeling sense and heartful sense of the other, and then helping them in their unique way land more fully. And then they go, oh, wow, I just had this realization or feeling.
That's right. That's right. I mean, as I said before, I could say it again. We could spend hours and hours unpacking so many beautiful, helpful, important things here, like what it really takes to be a guide in any way, a facilitator or a guide, what kind of embodiment before even standing in front of a podium or taking on a one-on-one client, to be able to actually effectively show up without pushing too far, without avoiding dealing with anything, and recognizing how our own, as a facilitator, coach, or teacher, relational needs may be trying to get met in that container where it's not appropriate. I had a really strong learning recently about crossing over friends with students. Somebody who's been in my work for a really, really long time or been taking sessions and stuff like that. Long story short, we were away. There was a bunch of people, and then I was spending time with this person, going on walks and stuff like that. There was no romance. It's just not that gendered situation for me. But what there was the recognition that this person felt natural expressing pain points or confusions about what had happened in the workshop or workshops with other people at the ashram we were visiting, just whenever in my downtime. And it was really difficult to set a boundary without stimulating this person's unfinished wounds with her parents and feeling criticized. So there's this whole thing, and I had this realization, and I had to say this to this person at dinner, whether it landed or not, twice. Hopefully it really landed. I said, I'm so sorry. I don't think I should have tried to build this with you in this way. I don't think it's fair to you that I should be trying to get a friendship out of this. I don't think that's fair or timely in this relationship. I think we can be friendly, and I don't know how much that landed, and there's, like that, but I use this illustration because I think it happens in people's lives, and we don't necessarily collegially talk about it with one another, about where we're making mistakes as teachers and coaches and facilitators, and how we might learn a little differently. So me trying to get my relational needs met from somebody who's seeking to grow creates confusion and distortion.
Oh, wow. What a brilliant story and a very, very good point.
Well, it creates confusion and distortion.
Yes.
If both parties aren't able.
That's right.
To work the extremely challenging tightrope walk yoga.
Yes.
Of that kind of both and.
Yeah.
That's right. And you have done it, and I have it in other places. So I don't want to mitigate that it can happen, and it does happen. I mean, Adyashanti and Mukti, his wife, who's now running the organization and the main teacher, started out as his student and his wife. So it does work where, and it works where it works. I think what I want to touch on next about this is the level of the willingness to be present, whether it's comfortable or not, and learn from what's arising and be willing to receive reflections from the other that may not be easy to hear.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And that also goes to the coach and aspirant relationship. We always start out right off the bat with an individual and we say, we're here to guide and to suggest. We'll never tell you what to do, but we're here to guide and suggest and to listen deeply, not just with our heart, our ears, but with our whole being and our hearts. And if we say something or suggest something to you that is really off base, or if you feel like we misheard you, we want you to tell us. We're right. Here. We want to grow and learn from that perhaps mistake or misunderstanding. And it's good for you and for us to hear that reflection back. That automatically sets an easeful place in the person's being when they go, wow, that's different. I haven't had that in a while with it.
And then I need to say, in certain places, given what I'm told to teach by my teacher in particular in Sri Vidya, and there are places where I am going to tell you not to do certain things or not to do them in this way or to start this practice. But these are technical matters working with highly explosive sound pulsations called mantras that if there's not a foundation in the nervous system, for me to let you go ahead and work with that without speaking up and telling you not to would be doing harm on my part. So it's an interesting balance between the non-hierarchical, we're all humans, we're all part of the same human family. We need to give each other clarity about what we're experiencing from a true place. And at the same time, when we're in the temple protocol, we could call it, when we're in the temple protocol, we're not in the food line together, but we're actually in the temple together. There is a hierarchy there, and there needs to be for safety.
That's really a good point. Yes. There are occasions when we say, this is really something that we feel strongly that you could try, or do. And, the doing is one aspect. The natural flow is quite another. But That's a really good point.
And I take your point. Sally was such a good teacher about this. I don't force people to do anything, even if I know it's the best thing. Like, okay. I have a student who is signed up for a pretty extensive late stage practitioner training with my teacher. And I have real reservations about previous practice being sufficient for that. And in my practice, and then we've had a couple dialogues and I feel better about it now, but I really resolved it down to the place of, I've had plenty of things that I involved myself with that I had to learn through direct experience and see it for myself. So sometimes people got to go through something and experience, that really destabilized me. I shouldn't have done that practice 7 days in a row. I should have done what you said and just done it once a week.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It unleashed too much more than I could handle with my skill set.
There you go. Yeah. Pacing and rhythm. Mm-hmm. So much. Each individual is so different.
And part of what you mentioned earlier, another of Linda's favorite phrases is, this is not a cookie cutter process.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
And here's another one while I'm quoting from the great saintly one in her ways. Living and speaking your truth is not a popularity contest.
And it's also not just emptying the contents of your mind onto somebody else.
Or dumping, as they say.
Yeah.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said.
Exactly.
You guys, there's a question I ask every guest, and it's based on a quote I'm fairly certain you've heard more than once. I first heard it when Adyashanti mentioned it in Palo Alto like 20 years ago at a satsang. It comes from Suzuki Roshi, Shunryo Suzuki Roshi, who opened the Zen Center of San Francisco in the 60s. And he would say, death is certain, the time is not. What is the most important thing? And I recognize with most of my guests that the word that article thrown in there, actually makes it a difficult thing, because most people go like, wow, I don't know if there's just one thing. Mm-hmm. That's, and my point of view may change. So I don't want to call it the.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it does change. The most important thing can shift in a moment sometimes. In this moment, for me, the most important thing is to just be with you, Scott, and to send you a lot of love, and to send all of your listeners and your practitioners so much support and wishes for well-being and groundedness and safety and clarity, and accessing the sun in their hearts, and just spreading the love and the joy, because this world needs it so badly right now with everything that's happening. So in this moment, the thing is being able to hold and support and just love and encourage and pray for wellness for all. And that includes my beloved Saniel. I can't tell you how blessed I am to have this amazing being in my life. I'm so blessed. I love him so much, and I'm so grateful that we are co-teachers, co-partners, married.
Co-livers.
Yeah, co-lovers.
Lovers, livers, lifers.
So anyway, that would be my answer.
Thank you. Thank you for the blessing stream. Thank you on behalf of everybody that's receiving it. And so may it just continue in its toroidal way, magnifying your joy.
Yeah, thank you, Scott.
Saniel, what comes up for you in response to the Suzuki Roshi?
What is the most important thing? To be, speaking for me here, as you asked me.
Yes, you, sir.
To be as true or faithful as I can to my real and total self, as best I can know and participate with and as it in any moment, while also consciously participating and collaborating with others to whatever degree they may be or not be living in that same kind of way. So that living in that kind of confidence of being true to myself in that way, and true to ourself, true to our greater heart that we share with everyone and everything.
There's a follow-up question that starts, I want to ask you, and Linda, you could take a shot at it too, that's coming for you, Saniel, which is, and it may or may not seem related, listeners, to what he just said, but for here it's just really strongly arising, which is, Saniel, is there a question that you're living with that's unanswered, that's organizing how you're moving through your practices in your life and calling you?
That's a wicked question.
I'm kind of known for those. They drove my mom crazy. And alternatively, sometimes when she's in a good mood, she said, you were born to be my teacher. Another time she'd be just shouting at me like, don't you tell me what to do.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. The inquiry is what is auspicious and necessary for me to do or attend to or be aware of today, in this moment, in this moment, in this moment, with the understanding that auspicious and necessary are two different kind of hoops of flame. And to get through the auspicious hoop is possible sometimes in situations and ways where necessary does the qualifications for necessary don't get met. So it might seem auspicious for me to be undertaking XYZ, and if I'm lucky and tuned in enough to the grace of it all, I'll figure out, yeah, seems auspicious, but it ain't necessary. It's not called for. And as I get older, I've sometimes joked, I've always wanted to be an elder, but it didn't occur to me that I'd have to get old.
I live in LA. That lands in a particular way here.
Oh, yeah. So you know, it's the awareness of the amount of time left, however short or long it may be, perhaps not making room for everything that seems to me would be auspicious and I hope is necessary, but who knows?
Sure.
So thank you. Great question.
Linda, is anything arising that you wanted to say from your seat about that question?
The question of the question.
Is there any question that you're living with that's organizing your life, your practice, your movements through the day that's unanswered so far?
Well, in this moment, what arises is, and I think it's directly linking up to my invocations and our pujas that we do together. And that
pujas are rituals for everybody who doesn't know that word in Sanskrit.
Thank you.
Ceremonies.
Yes. Our sacred ceremonies of invoking and attracting more individuals who have the hungry, hurting hearts of the world, who are desperately seeking for that equanimity, perhaps a conscious embodied awakening, but just a place in their heart of hearts that they're looking for answers. They're looking for how to fill the void, so to speak, in their life, even if it's just a little bit here and there. How do we attract and reach more of the hungry, hurting hearts? Because that is, as I mentioned before, tearing up. That's my passion. That is his passion. I honestly feel like I was placed on this planet, Scott, to do what I'm doing, to help in any way that I possibly can, to serve, to help each individual and hopefully multiple individuals in the world. And that's my heart. That's my passion. That's
beautiful. It's what compassion does. It's what love does.
Yes. And when I move in every day, if I'm at the store and I'm engaging, I make it a point. It just naturally comes to me to engage with someone, the checker, the people who are stocking the shelves or wherever I am. I'm constantly engaging with people and asking them how they're doing and trying to bring in a little bit of happiness in that connection, which feeds me as well. So once again, it's that circle, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for the question.
I really appreciate what you were just saying, Linda. And I think to bring my answer a little bit out of the more abstract kind of response that I gave earlier, which isn't any less real because it's abstract, but.
And by the way, for me, it was super concrete, your answer.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'm glad. But yeah, it's very much being aware that in some ways we've been invested with a breakthrough vision process. One of the next evolutions of this kind of participation in life. And yeah, how to get it so that people who are in a position to appreciate its kind of technical, esoteric details, and those who are just looking for a little lightening and brightening in the midst of this crazy, seemingly ever darkening world in so many ways. How we both, and in collaboration with others, can best be of service to all those people, and in a way that also, for us, this is real important, builds on what Linda was saying, permits us to live out our lives in the most enjoyable and fulfilling ways, and to leave the legacy of this experiment so that it's maximally accessible and useful to others in times to come.
Yes.
And I must say, I'm not going to get quite as effusive as she did, but I remember our friend Ken Wilber once said to me, Saniel, there's this thing, it's the only time he ever quoted me from one of my books we were doing an integral life thing. So he read the end of Healing the Spirit Matter Split, where I talk about how Linda is the embodiment of the divine feminine to me, more than any other person or creature or thing. And the greatest of the blessings that have ever come to me.
I think that's about the only way a partnership can actually work and be evolutionary, is if both people, or if you're in a throuple, all three of you, choose to practice seeing the other in that way while having room for the human difficulties and flaws, but to actually practice that. Like, said another way, I remember when Sally Kempton said to me about approaching or relating to a teacher, she said, I found it most empowering for everybody involved and skillful that when the teacher is in the chair, relate to them as the living Buddha, or whatever name you want to give that. And when they're off the chair, relate to them respectfully as a fellow human being. Relating to one as a living Buddha in the chair when they're in the teaching seat, and this is my experience, is a way to receive more of the transmission without grasping or chasing it. I always, no matter how close we got, and no matter how much of her personality structure I became familiar with Sally, I told her this, I kept her just above me so that I could continue to learn more than just information, but the transmission streams that dance through her life.
Indeed. Well said. And she certainly had that. She was so beautiful.
And she had edges. And those who became friendly got to know the humanity, which I appreciated as much of a natural teaching as the formed teachings that she shared.
That's exactly right. Thank you for that. Yes. Divinely human.
Yep.
Right?
Divinely human and humanly divine.
Yes. That's right. Absolutely. We all are that.
Well, I look forward to future dialogues with you both. It's just a joy. It's so familiar.
Yeah. That's how we feel too, Scott. Thank you so much for this time today. What a blessing.
Listeners, we're going to end together as we do in stillness. And some of you are starting to have a glimmer of more of what's available in that stillness, even though it's about 10, 15 seconds. Your whole life can change in 10 to 15 seconds. And so much of the value of life, in my experience and that of many of my guests, continues to be things that can't necessarily be put into words, but can be sensed. So we're going to end in this way, in stillness. You can take a deep breath. You could let go through every cell like you're setting down a heavy burden, perhaps soften the soles of your feet and the palms of your hands like you're opening a closed fist with your mind. And we'll just be together and notice whatever you notice. And if you're enjoying this, please share widely with other people who might benefit from these dialogues. So into the silence, we share ourselves. Loving the episode? Click to follow, like, and share it as widely as possible. Want to go deeper with the choice to grow? Explore the show notes. You'll find links there for going deeper with our guests, as well as how to work with me in the work of waking up, growing up, cleaning up, and showing up. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to join you in the next episode.